think we should point out there's just jets over there now. We're by an airport and there's just some fighter jets.
Quite low too. Maverick!
It's like watching one of your course previews. Hello everyone and welcome to the UCI headquarters here in Aigle, Switzerland. Absolutely beautiful part of a beautiful country. My name is Ric McLaughlin. I'm the lead commentator for mountain bike for Warner Brothers Discovery Sports, and I'm glad to say for the first time this year I am joined by my good friend, colleague, roving reporter, course preview pilot, Australian man of action, Josh Carlson. Josh, how has your summer been?
It's been a good summer. It's been nice to be back home in Australia and getting ready for this year, and a lot of changes, stepping into Carlson on course a little bit more and the Enduro World Cups. It's going to be an exciting 2024 and really looking forward to getting this season underway.
So you are, of course, most people will know you from a gravity background. We're here today to talk about the endurance side of the UCI Mountain Bike World Series. You got to ride the course previews last season. How did you find that? How difficult are these modern cross-country courses?
They are extremely difficult for sure. Coming from enduro and you know, we have some pretty wild tracks, you get to see them, but you're on a bike that's quite capable to go downhill. Modern cross-country bikes are getting more and more capable for the technical side of our courses. But man, how hard you have to ride these courses. You can't really ride them casually. So this year doing the Carlson on course previews, I thought I could ride them quite casual to learn the courses. No, not at all. You're straight in the deep end as hard as you can go, and it's really difficult. It is very fun, but when your heart rate's at 180, 190, 200, descending down some of those real gnarly descents, it's a whole nother level.
That's the thing, they are gnarly as well. And those little bikes with the, they're extremely fast rolling, very little grip on the tires, coming from a gravity background. You don't expect it to be as hard as it is. Where was the hardest one for you, out of interest?
The hardest one for me was probably Val di Sole, with how technical it was and how kind of with it you had to be. Like you already arrived to the technical section redlining, and then to get through it all, if you make one little mistake, it's all over. So that was really difficult to manage, and there was a big long climb up to the Val di Sole sign, and then a drop it's about 10-foot drop. So on an enduro bike, no worries. And I was quite confident from an enduro bike, but getting on a cross-country bike and riding it at the pace that these cross-country riders ride it at, it really opened my eyes, and it was very difficult.
Okay, very difficult.
I enjoyed it, but it was very difficult.
Right, I think it's time now to roll through our endurance side of the calendar for the UCI Mountain Bike World Series this season. Don't forget, we will do a separate video on the gravity side, if that is more your cup of tea. But for now, we're going to talk about endurance, cross-country short track, cross-country Olympic, and cross-country marathon, back again for its second year. Season kicks off in April. On the 12th to 14th, Mairiporã, Brazil, and then we decamp overnight and head the following weekend to Araxá, also in Brazil. Doesn't get any bigger than that, does it? Season opener, 2 brand new venues, Brazil, boom.
Yeah, boom. It's going to be humongous. The rumours and reports of the crowds that are coming are in the tens of thousands.
I think they're there
of
now.
people.
Some of them are getting set up as we speak here in Switzerland.
They're already ready. And a factor for Brazil is going to be the travel. A lot of times, everyone from the Southern Hemisphere has to travel to Europe, so it's quite difficult to manage. And now going to Brazil, majority of our field is going to have that long distance travel, new food, new culture, new side of the road, new water. It's a lot of those little things that make a big difference come race day.
Will that play in, do you think? Because I always think as a fan, it's always really cool to see a brand new venue at round one because it's a level playing field for everyone. But do you think that's where experience, the more sort of well-seasoned, let's call them politely, riders will sort of benefit from it? I
do think we'll see some of our experienced and not necessarily older, but the riders that we've seen perform well.
I didn't say old, you said old.
Well, it's a funny mix now, like this new younger wave and the older crowd, but you know, someone like Nino Schurter is one of the older guys now, but he's the GOAT. He's one of the greatest ever. The performances we saw in 2023 were exceptional and some of the best we've ever seen. So to go down the experience of knowing what it's like to go to a new country, he would have been to Brazil before. He was there a couple of years ago when they went to Brazil. So I think that's going to shine through. It'll play a big part.
Interesting as well, Olympic year, Paris Games, you know, a lot of the cross-country side of mountain biking, of course, it is an Olympic discipline, cross-country Olympic, losing the title. Athletes peaking for that one race in the middle of summer, but we've seen it in the past with Olympic years where a door also opens for that younger generation who maybe aren't going to games or it's not quite their time, but, you know, there is opportunities for wins there. So all to play for in Brazil. I, for one, cannot wait to go there. After that, May 24th to 26th, we move to a venue far from being brand new, nearly a decade and a half on the calendar now for Novo Mesto na Moravia in the Czech Republic, cross-country short track, cross-country Olympic. First round of cross-country marathon. What did you make of cross-country marathon last year?
That was a fantastic venue to start with. I mean, the pace was just incredibly high for a marathon. Marathon about 75 to 100 kilometers, so we're talking about 3 to 4 to 5 hours, and the pace these riders attacked the course at from the very start was no different to a World Cup, and it didn't let up.
I don't know, rather ignorantly, I guess, thought that they might be on hardtails and going a bit steadier away over that distance. The speed of them was unbelievable.
It was amazing racing.
And we saw some big personalities. Lena Nimšević emerged, Bosnia's first ever UCI World Cup winner. That was really cool to see. Hope to see her back in action again this season. Novo Mesto na Moravia, a bike rider's race course, isn't it?
For sure. Very punchy, very technical, very spectator friendly. It was probably the course that I had the most fun on this year. You could really enjoy it. And I remember asking Tom Pidcock if there were some spots that you could actually enjoy on the course. And the descents are flowy and fast, and they make you smile. Yeah. So it was really, really cool. At the same time, they're so punchy and technical. It really made for a tough race, tactical race, and there was plenty of fireworks last year.
I think as well, like we see traditionally in Novo Mesto na Moravia, very technically skilled riders like Tom Pidcock. They can use those fast, punchy descents to recover and go again on those little punches. So it's always good racing over Mesto na Moravia. Pidcock versus Dubois there last season was one of the big battles of the year. There's a really good short track there. Excited as always to go to Novo Mesto na Moravia. Next up, the one that you highlighted as not quite your favourite course to ride, Val di Sole Trentino in Italy. First time we'll get together with the Gravity Mob.
Yep.
Downhill there, of course, famous track. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But short track, cross-country Olympic, Val di Sole Trentino. It's kind of a course of two loops, really, you'd have to say. Yeah. And the second loop has that harrowingly long climb into that super steep rock garden. Yeah,
it's very tactical, Val di Sole. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. Really good bike setup is key. That second half of the course is just so technical and draining. If you already arrived there redlined, then you already arrived there on limit, and then you have to climb and navigate these routes, rocks, descents, holes, duff, crowd. It's really, really cool. Really, really hard venue, really, really cool venue. And it's one of those venues that have such a lasting legacy. Like, that's one of the famous venues. When you talk about the Mountain Bike World Series and the UCI Mountain Bike World Series over the years, Val di Sole is one of the first ones that come to mind. So you win there, you're immortalized.
I think we should point out there's just jets over there now. We're by an airport and there's just some fighter jets.
Quite low too. Maverick!
It's like watching one of your course previews. Two fighter jets blasting their way through the mountains, high atop an Olympic BMX track and an MOT test centre. Fantastic.
Anyway.
Val di Sole Trentino, I always think one of those venues that commands as much respect downhill track as well as cross-country racetrack. I think that's a really good sort of, if you want to go as a fan and watch both of them, it's a really, really good place to go.
And a pivotal time in the lead up to the Olympics, as you mentioned. We're back into Europe. It's the start of the European bloc, and that is a really key time to get ready for Paris. You're only 4 weeks out from Paris-ish, 4 or 5 weeks, and if your preparation's on the right track, happy days. At the same time, if something's going wrong, you're at the business end of your preparations for one of the biggest events of the year and the cycle. Yeah. So stressful times.
Next up, one that you and I know very, very well, Crans-Montana in Switzerland. Short track, cross-country Olympic. Crans-Montana was an Enduro World Cup stop for a number of years. Super passionate organizer, great trail builders, had some really, really good stages there over the years. They're going to I cannot wait to see what they have in store for a cross-country racetrack.
That'll be fantastic to see a brand new course, a venue that you and I know quite well, and so much varied terrain to play with.
They used to do a great line, and the top half of a stage would be a battered old bike park.
Yep.
And then the lower half would be just like
fresh.
Some of the best steep, fresh cut stuff you'll ever ride in your life.
And last time we were there, it snowed a lot. So, you know, you've got that kind of variable to deal with. It's going to be great to see that venue really take shape and test our riders in the build up to the 2025 World Championships. So there's going to see a lot of people there testing that out, wanting to see the course. And again, we keep bringing up the Paris Olympics, but it's part of that preparation to one of the biggest events.
And it's in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's
like
Switzerland,
a nation who demand cross-country wins ahead of the Olympic Games. It's going to be a big race in Cron, Montana. Next up, Haute Savoie in France for what I'm going to predict is going to be a rather busy 10 days for yourself and me. Downhill, enduro, cross-country short track, cross-country Olympic, cross-country marathon. Again, the area Haute Savoie in France hosting every format of the UCI Mountain Bike World Series. The cross-country track there, it's kind of a funny one, isn't it? There's a lot of hairpins, there's a lot of, it's a real sort of horsepower course. Am I right in saying that?
It's a real horsepower course. It is technical, but it's not the same technicality as somewhere like Val di Sole, or I wouldn't say it's not the same catastrophic technicality as Val di Sole or
the
Nova
consequences
Mesto.
are somewhat lower than Val di Sole.
We saw some big crashes in those first couple of races, whereas Leger, you can come undone, and there is some big, like there's massive drops on a cross-country bike, are very difficult. But it is more of a horsepower track, a bit more of a tactical track. We've seen some major heat over the last couple of years in Leger.
Oh, so hot.
So hot. So that's it's a different format, and it's another way to test our riders.
I think the cleanup after the downhill layer is probably just finished in Leger. If you're a fan of mountain bike racing and you want to combine that with actually getting on your bike yourself and going to one of the best places on earth to ride your bike, that is a fantastic festival.
One of the meccas.
Then we have a break for something called the Olympics in Paris. Or there's already been a test event there. Loana Lecomte won. I think one of the big overarching storylines we're going to talk a lot about this season, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. The only thing she hasn't won is an Olympic gold. She said from like 2 years ago, Paris is her goal. That's what she wants. She's going to have to beat Lecomte, along with everyone else.
And you can feel the tension. It's been going on, the Olympic build-up is not just weeks, it's years worth. We've heard Pauline and Tom from the Ineos team. It's a 2-year preparation. Sam Gaze, his plans last year were in preparation for this year's Olympics in 2024.
It's something that we don't really consider from the gravity side of just how the pressure that goes into one race every 4 years.
And now you got the wild card, like Will van der Poel come back. He tried to come back last year in Glasgow for the Mountain Bike Worlds to race the mountain bike cross-country Olympic format in preparation for this year's Paris Olympics. He's won everything.
Cyclocross this season, he has dominated. And
he hasn't won an Olympic mountain bike medal. Tom Pidcock took it last year. Will he come back? Is he a wild card? Is he a threat? There's so many wild stories in the lead up to that games in July. It's going to be fantastic. And it affects everything in the lead up. It does affect our preparation for Nova Mesto, for Brazil, for our athletes getting ready now. Beck Henderson is currently in Dubai right now racing, and Jens Schulman is planning his preparation through March with one eye on the Olympics in July. So it's got a huge effect throughout the season, and it's more than just one race. The enormity of what the Olympics means to our sport is it's taking mountain biking to the mainstream. You're alongside these sports that's in front of billions of people. And that's why it's so important and such a big deal for the greater good of the sport, our athletes, and it's a legacy you'll be immortalized forever if you win an Olympic gold medal. Bart Brentson's part of our commentary team, first ever mountain biking gold medalist. He's a legend forever.
Did you know that he's a sir?
A sir?
He is a Sir Bart Brentsons.
What?
Off that Olympic medal, and he keeps very quiet. And
That's amazing.
Keep on wanting to refer to him as Sir Bart Brentsons.
And he's had a haircut.
Has he?
Yes. He looks fresh and trim. The pony's gone, baby.
What?
Yep. Breaking news. Pony's gone.
Bart's got rid of his ponytail.
TBC.
I'm worried about him, man. What if that like Samson sort of strength goes? And I've been on a bike ride with him. There's no danger of
He
that
might be
happening.
coming back.
Have you been on a bike ride with Bart yet?
Yes. Never forget.
Yeah. Anyway, those Olympic races are not the same as a UCI
No.
World Cup. We've seen names who have just quietly managed to channel their efforts into those Olympics. I mean, Jenny Rissfids was Olympic champion. You know, there's always an outside factor.
Yeah.
There's like Peter Sagan's had a go at them. There's just always, he'll be there again, we reckon, in Paris this year. So next up, another fairly sizable race. The UCI Mountain Bike World Championships, Pal Aaron Sal, Val Noord, Andorra, the highest altitude we go to all year. And yeah, that just makes it an absolute brute of a course to ride. How did you find the altitude last year?
It was difficult. It's not as difficult as somewhere like one of the high mountains with 2,000 plus, 3,000 plus meters, but you have to pay attention to it. What really snuck up on me was the day in, day out load of being at altitude. You don't recover quite as quickly. You really have to meter your effort. And I noticed a lot of the athletes did less practice for the Andorra round.
There's lots of different ways they approach it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some stay down, sleep down low, then come up for the day, then go back down. Others stay in the camper vans permanently up high. You get,
and it could be a mental thing. Luca Schwarzbauer last year mentioned that he didn't let it get to him. He's like, nah, and altitude, it's not a thing. I'm going to come in when I come in, stick to my schedule, and smash it.
altitude will not stand in the way of watt bombs. Like that's what Schwarzbauer basically did last year, wasn't it? It was just like, catch this, off he went.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of really, really bad weather. We're in the high Pyrenees. Weather kind of blows in, blows out all week long there. Mona Mitterwallner last year was super impressive there, as was Matthias Flukiger. What a race he had.
Phenomenal race. And two smaller athletes in stature. So that lighter weight athlete also has a big effect. You're not as big, there's not as much mass to push that blood flow around. So at altitude, that makes a big difference. The lighter you are, you've got to ride your bike, of course, but the lighter you are, it does help at altitude because you haven't got as much mass to carry that oxygen through when there's so much less oxygen in the air. That's the biggest drama. You're at altitude, 2,000 plus meters, there's less oxygen for your blood to circulate with. Therefore, the harder you work, it doesn't recover as quickly because you don't have as much oxygen in those limbs. So
Flukiger, we talked about a lot in the commentary with Bart Brenchens last year. He's kind of in this place in his career where he cannot have conditions hard enough. Once everybody else is putting down jackets on the start line, Matthias Flukiger is there just saying, bring it on, I want more.
And you know, last year I feel like he didn't necessarily get robbed, but a few times exceptional performances of his were marred by mechanicals.
A lot of mechanicals last
crashes,
year, actually. A lot of punctures.
Funny bits and pieces that it could just be lighting the fire for this year.
Leogang, snowshoe.
Just didn't quite go his way. Yeah, Mont Saint Anne, he had a couple of issues.
Mont Saint Anne, he had, was it 2 or 3 punctures in the race, and really took him out of that battle with Pidcock that we were all gearing up for. Pal Aaron Sal, Andorra, again another place that really combines cross country and downhill very, very well. It is a brutal place to race bikes. Slightly unusual as well that the pits are up top
and separate.
So it's kind of a bit sort of in and out. Really, really good. So after the UCI Mountain Bike World Championships, Pal Aaron Sal, Val Noord, Andorra, we head across the pond, Lake Placid, Mount Van Hoevenberg, United States, upstate New York, brand new venue. We've got all 3 cross-country formats there. What are you expecting from that?
I expect that to be a similar vein to Brazil. Huge crowd. Mountain biking in North America is massive at the moment, especially this cross-country scene and marathon movement.
They've got some fast riders coming out of the US, both in endurance and gravity sides of the sport. Riley Amos is up into elites this year, won a couple of under-23 UCI World Cups last season. Kate Courtney, of course, she's been real quiet of late, but one of those riders might just do something super impressive at the Olympics. And then you're talking about Lake Placid being a completely different race.
Yeah, completely different race. It's a brand new venue. It's in that North American scene, and the North American crowds, I mean, you can't discount the impact that the crowds have, and having those riders like Chris Blevins, Gwendolyn Gibson, there's a couple of amazing performances from last year that it's going to carry on, and those riders really lift when you're back in America, and and it's a chance to get one over the Euros as well. It's quite a funny North American and European battle that's going to be exciting to watch.
It'll be interesting as well. I think the off-road scene in the USA has got huge, particularly with more sort of endurance sides of stuff like gravel.
Yep.
I know that Lake Placid, Mount Van Hoevenberg, massive with gravel races and gravel events. So I think the marathon course there could be really, really fast as well.
For sure. I think it'll be, and I think that crowd in North America is really growing and really strong. So to have an opportunity for the North Americans to come and compete at the marathon level, it's going to be fantastic.
Apart
to see.
from anything else, it's hosted the Winter Olympics twice as well, so they know how to do big events. So I'm expecting big things from Lake Placid, and then finally, the big. I was going to say the big race this year, but God, like Olympics, haven't we? But what is a big race on any calendar if you're a mountain biker? Mont Saint Anne in Canada, finals, downhill, cross-country short track, cross-country Olympic. Saint Anne's the one, isn't it?
For sure, and it's one of those courses that's in a similar vein to Nova Mesto and Val di Sole. It's so technically hard and difficult. The weather rolls in towards the back half of the season. It's one of those legacy tracks that, once again, you win there, you perform there, it's going to be amazing. The back half of this season, going to Lake Placid and Mont Saint Anne, it's going to be really interesting to see how our athletes deal with that. The Olympic hangover, we might call it, the preparation into the Olympics, and now it's a bit of a few week break to Andorra, to Lake Placid, to Mont Saint Anne. We might see a couple of fresh faces come through, some of the younger athletes who maybe weren't on that Olympic cusp. I'm expecting them to perform well into the second half of the season. As some of our older and maybe Olympic athletes, they've done their job, maybe.
It'd be interesting. I also think that, we went to Mont Saint Anne last season and all the talk was about how they changed the track a lot. Some of the famous features like La Beatrice were out.
Oh, I loved the track last year. It was so
but
good.
That track last year, especially whenever it rained it was a running match at times. It was a running race at times for some of the riders, and for other ones, they just powered through it and were.
And those sections, I can tell you firsthand, was so gnarly in the dry, and then when it rained, oh my goodness, it just made it so much worse. And to ride them at the level that they're riding it at, the pace, the physicality of it, and to set your bike up appropriately. We mentioned before, Matthias Fluke got flattered a whole bunch of times. Maybe a poor bike setup, maybe not quite prepared for how rocky and rough and brutal that course was. Amazing venue to finish the year, an amazing venue to be at.
Right, go on then, put you on the spot. Who do you see, we'll just do elites, elite men, elite women. Who do you see winning the cross-country overall, the Worlds and the Olympics this year?
Whoa, that's a big one. For the women, it's really difficult to go past Pauline for the Olympics.
I just think if history has taught us one thing, it's if Pauline really wants to win a race.
Yeah.
And we saw at times last season, when she turns that pace on, no one's got an answer to it.
We had some amazing performances last year from like Laura Stiger, come on really well towards the back end of the season. Alessandra Keller was always there. Rebecca Henderson was always there. Mette Valner, like she's coming in a big, strong way. So I don't know. Maybe I'm on the fence, but I think really
for Olympics, you could be talking about someone like a Neff or a Courtney who have had quieter seasons the last couple of years, who might just go, do you know what, boom, off.
I mean, in the men's, can Luca back it up? Like, he was our exceptional standout last year. He really, really took a hold of the whole series. For the series, I think he's going to do fantastic. You can't write off Nino. Could it be Nino's final golden year? Just wins the Olympics, wins the Worlds, and
I think the one thing, we've not even come close to making any kind of prediction.
No, and I don't think I can.
I think the one thing that proves is just how tightly packed the field is. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to suggest we now go and get a coffee and continue to talk about bike racing. Don't forget, you can follow all the action this season on Eurosport Cycling, the new home of cycling, as well as on the UCI Mountain Bike World Series channels. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We'll see you all there. We'll see you trackside. Josh, coffee time. Thank you so much. Let's go and talk about bike racing some more.
Thanks, mate.